Program is about to begin. Please be seated. The program is about to begin. Thank you.
We want justice! We want justice!
Women's progress is human progress.
Girl, every child to be educated.
Don't wait, just jump on it. Do it, because there will be no tomorrow. This is the time.
This is the first meeting of the LA chapter of Women in the World, so thank you all for coming. And, first of all, I just have to ask the question, is Mel Gibson in the house? Only because he once said he would only come to a Women in the World event when hell freezes over. I don't think he is, somehow. Well, what an amazing group of alpha women are assembled here. Cook, Melanie Cook, Nancy Josephson, Masimbi Kanyoro, Catherine Ross, Kelly Meyer, Marta Kaufman, and Rashida Jones. Thank you so much for coming. And I shall return the favor in next time you're in New York. My dining room is a little smaller, but you're all invited. Well, Oscar nominees are always saying that there aren't enough great parts for women. Well, you're going to meet a few today who there's a lot of great parts there. Thank you, Toyota, for partnering with us. You've been so supportive of us and continue to be, always there for us at the summit and coming on the road with us now. Thank you very much indeed. And also Credit Suisse, who are joining us here as well. Love working with you, Credit Suisse. We do a lot together. Thank you very much for being here as well. Well, this is actually, for us, a very exciting moment for women in the world. And we have joining us there on opening night, Hillary Clinton and Christine Lagarde together in what I think will be rather an epic dialogue with these two amazing brainiacs together on stage. We're also going to bring to the audience Rusliana, the incredible young Ukrainian girl who sang in the Maidan Square in Kiev. Meryl Streep is again my co-host, along with Dion von Furstenberg and another posse of incredible women. And you're also going to hear for those of you who don't know the history of women in the world, the summit really began as a kind of passion play in 2009. It was because I got to know through Vital Voices Global Partnership, an NGO which mentors women in emerging countries, women leaders, just the most amazing women. I got to know them backstage very often at those events, and I found women who were confronting unimaginable challenges in their own countries. And political change. And I thought these women are absolute rock stars. I don't know why they're not getting more exposure. We in America have so much to learn from them. They're role models. These are the role models that we want our daughters to see. And I thought that the time had come really to expose them to a larger audience and to really see the world now through the eyes of women. So we created this annual summit. And we need to be exposed to the vibrant realities of elsewhere. So our team went out and we used our journalistic depth and our contacts to track down incredible women doing incredible things. And we found that there were so many of them. Forces of change in Pakistan and Egypt and Africa and Saudi and all these women who were just doing this stuff which no one was paying attention to. A hidden army of women who had the talent And it won the immediate support, I have to say, of the generosity and participation of Hillary Clinton and Meryl Streep and Condoleezza Rice and Angelina Jolie and Madeleine Albright, who all joined us to bring their spotlight to these women. And it became an immediate viral success. So 5 years later, Women in the World has grown just as the voices of women have also grown. And now the summit at Lincoln Center has an audience of 2,500. So it seems that people are interested in these women after all. So this afternoon's program is really just a sneak peek of the type of discussion and the kinds of women that you'll meet at this year's summit, and we do hope many of you will come in for it. Before we jump into that packed program, it's my pleasure just to introduce you now to DayOne. So incredibly generous with us. They've created this series with us, which we absolutely love. It's called Mothers of Invention, where we partner together to find innovative, creative young women who are inventing something amazing that will solve a problem in their own communities. And they become a Toyota Mother of Invention, they get a prize, and we present them to our audience in April. You're going to meet one from the Los Angeles region.
I want you to feel free to be as smart as you can be. To be as good as you can be. To be as powerful as you can be.
If you are a creative person, if you feel like you can make a change, then you're an innovator, you're an inventor. To invent is just to see the world as you want it to be and do something.
Invention isn't just a ping moment and then a product, it's a process. And it's a hard one, but it's ultimately worthwhile.
Girls are powerful. They're innovators and change makers and disruptors, invaluable contributors to a positive society.
It's not that small efforts matter, it's that small efforts matter the most, because without these small efforts, there is no big outcome.
To me, being an inventor is about coming up with simple ways to potentially improve other people's lives.
I've learned that kids can succeed through odds that are beyond my vocabulary to describe. I've learned that a single person can change destiny.
As young women, we took our own stories, we took our own experiences. So be a storyteller. Take your life, take your experience, and use that as the lens to solve the problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. This is such a phenomenal gathering of change makers, and I'm always so proud to share the stage with you, and I'm confident that this afternoon is going to be both motivating and transformative for all of us. Toyota is very proud to be a presenting partner with Women in the World, and I must say it's invigorating and personally and professionally to be part of the energy and inspiration that these events bring together. I want to take a moment to recognize some of my colleagues from Toyota who are in attendance here today. These executives are remarkable women who I have the privilege of working with every single day, and I'm so happy that they were able to join me here. I hope that you leave this afternoon with a sense of pride, knowing that we are all in a unique position to advance women in our communities, in our townships, and around the world. I also want to thank each and every one of you who are here today to help our esteemed guests and women everywhere on this continued journey to further the cause of women. Toyota is committed to supporting and inspiring and celebrating women to help them go places in life. We are proud to demonstrate our ongoing commitment by honoring the Mothers of Invention, who are courageous women who develop innovative and practical solutions to some of the world's most pressing problems. Coming up later today in the program, as Tina mentioned, Toyota is excited to announce our third Mother of Invention for 2014. We are extremely thrilled that this woman, who's based in San Francisco, right here in California, is being recognized today, a week before World Water Day. For her innovation solution, we're acknowledging her for her innovative solution to saving lives in disaster areas worldwide by addressing the vital global need of clean water. I'm going to leave you with that. We'll certainly learn more about this Mother of Invention later in the program. Tina, thanks again for hosting Women in the World and for allowing Toyota to be part of such an amazing and a truly special movement. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to meet a really interesting woman. She is a great change maker in Saudi Arabia, and she's our first guest today. Let's just take a little look at this very seminal video that she made that sparked a whole movement in her own country. Manal al Sharif.
أنا قاعدة أسوق في الخبر الحين أنا في العقربية. اليوم كلمني واحد من الشباب معانا يشتغل في شو اسمه في الصحراء. يقول الشباب يدعوا لي كمنان. قلت لهم يدعوا لي يقولون إحنا نطلع الصحراء بالشهر نقعد. في ناس طبعا من حسب الأسامي حقهم في ناس يقعدوا شهر في الصحراء ويقعدوا بعيد عن زوجاتهم وأولادهم. بس الأم ما تقدر تسوق سيارة، ما تقدر تودي العيال المدرسة. على الأقل إنه الوحدة في أوقات لا قدر الله اللي هو الطوارئ إنها تقدر تمشي أمورها، يعني لا قدر الله زوجها كان معاها جات له سكتة ولا جات شيء اسمه يعني. الأمية والجهل عندنا في السواقة تلاقي واحدة معاها PhD بروفيسورة في الجامعة وما تعرف تسوق. نبي نلغي الأمية هذه في البلد.
Okay, so Manal, you really caused trouble with that video, which is what we love about you. So tell me what it was. Just take us back to that moment in 2011 when there you were working at Aramco, a security specialist, and, minding your own business. And then all of a sudden, something must have boiled up in you to just say, I am going to get behind the wheel of a car. Tell me what happened to make you do that and how it felt at the time.
It's a very long story to tell. Really, very long story.
Can you hear? Just want to just make sure everyone can hear.
But to make it short, you wake up in the morning and you can just have the car keys and start it and go to work or pick up your kids from school. It's something very basic, I would say. Well, in Saudi Arabia, it's a huge thing. It's been a taboo since 1990, when 40 brave women took the wheels and drove And ever since, they shut them down, they banned them from leaving the country, they fired them from their jobs. They called them all kinds of bad names like whores, agents. So for 25, how many years? 2011 from 1990, 21 years. 21 years, no one can even touch that subject. I had a personal story myself. I almost got kidnapped trying to find a taxi in the street. And we were just like,
you were
why we can't drive?
You were kidnapped trying to get a taxi?
So in Saudi Arabia, it's not normal for a woman to walk in the street alone, and I don't cover my face, so you're an open target. And I was walking at 9 p.m. in the street trying to find a taxi or a ride home, and someone followed me, and I had to throw a stone on this guy to just protect myself. And that was very terrifying for me. So many things led to things. One of them is also 2011 was the Arab Spring, and we saw how powerful the social media to sound your views. We used to go and complain to our female colleagues or male colleagues or family, but we never thought we can use social media. In Saudi Arabia, it's an absolute monarchy where people cannot talk. It's only the government. But us as people, there is no podium for us to go and speak. I cannot have interview like this or even speak to women in Saudi Arabia like this. So for us, social media was huge, and I had no clue. That video, when I posted online, it was part of the movement, Women to Drive, and I had no clue. It would be the trending video that day on YouTube, and it would put me in jail. I was in my office, and my colleague ran into my office. Aramco is one of the few companies in Saudi Arabia where they allow men and women to work together. And he said, your video is trending. I'm like, what video? Because we posted 3 videos. He said, you driving. It's just me driving. It's just, yes, it's trending. And I got a lot of hate talk. And I remember one guy from Australia, he was commenting on the video because it was trending on YouTube. He was just like, why everyone, I was speaking Arabic, the translation wasn't there. So someone speaking, as my husband says, Arabs speak like this.
So what happened, Manal?
And he said, why everyone is watching this? It's just a woman driving. So for the whole world, this is it. It's a simple thing.
So what happened? So you were arrested?
So she said, I looked for trouble. The government or the authorities stayed very quiet while the whole country went really crazy over this video. How could she dare to drive? And even post a video about it online. I was very anxious. What would the government do? So I had to drive again with my brother, because you need a legal guardian if you get arrested in trouble, to get you out of trouble. And I asked him to pass by a police car to see their reaction, because they stayed very quiet. So the reaction was very beautiful. They called the religious police. They took us to the interrogation. They let me go, and they came again to my house at 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. They came and they took me with my brother, and I was sent to jail. It was shocking even to the Saudis who were against me, who hated me for driving. It was shocking because in Saudi Arabia, just sending a woman for driving, and she's also a mother, people knew in Saudi Arabia I have a child, they were really shocked and they were mad at the government. The Saudis themselves were shocked and mad, and they started a petition. 3,500 people signed that petition. And the whole world, a blogger was collecting the news. It went to Japan, to Malaysia, to Russia, you name it, India. Every single part of this world heard about that woman who drove and got arrested and sent to jail for driving. And this is what put so much pressure to let me up.
Okay. So, Saudi clerics have warned that a woman driving a car leads to ruined marriages, a low birth rate, the spread of adultery, and the spending of excessive amounts of money on beauty products. Sounds like LA, doesn't it, actually? What is the matter with these clerics? Why do they think this is preposterous? And Saudi is the only place in the world where women can't drive. So why is it such an inflamed issue? Is it because of these guardianship laws, which in Saudi mean that no woman can, set forth without a guy? Is that really at the bottom of it? They think that if a woman drives, she's going to want to flout the other rules of guardianship?
Can I use the word piss and no one gets offended?
You can use the word piss, yes.
Nothing piss off Saudis, men or religious people, like a woman behind the driving wheel. Don't ask me why. I have no clue why this specific thing. So it was very interesting because you can talk about women rights all your life, but nothing would bring the attention. Like, just pop in a woman driving thing. Just pop in this in an article or an interview, and everyone will watch that interview and pay attention. Saudi Arabia is a very conservative society, and it's controlled by the religious establishment. So you've been since 1990, where it wasn't an issue at all, having a woman driving. It was the Kuwait, the Gulf War II, where American troops were in Saudi Arabia, 200,000 troops. And the soldiers, the female soldiers were driving in the streets of Saudi Arabia. It wasn't an issue until those 47 women drove, and it became a taboo, where it was a huge thing. The last one was in October. We had fatwa, a religious opinion says, women driving would damage your ovaries. So they would come up, now it's not religious, but now it's scientific. They can always find a reason. But for us, it's more of pop in this thing, and you can talk about the guardianship system, which is, I call it the source of all evil. It's in some means, a woman is a minor all her life. Yesterday, a member of the Shura Council, a lady, her name is Dr. Khalida Clare. She is a PhD. She is awarded from Harvard. She is awarded the highest award in Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz honoring award. She was in the book fair in Riyadh, which is the biggest book fair in Saudi Arabia. She was banned from being on the stage like this, sitting with other fellow men to present her paper. They asked her to be in the backstage and present it through a mic. And I loved what she did. She took a stand and she said, I'm not going to present the paper. If you disrespect me, I'm like, and I think we need more women like Dr. Khawla, and I really salute her from here, to go and stand up and speak. By the way, I've been invited for Women in the World for 3 times. And I couldn't make the first 2 times in New York because of problems with the Saudi authorities and problems with my work. And I had to quit my work after that. So I'm lucky to be here. And it's more beautiful, by the way, Beverly Hills.
Well, I mean, what's interesting and a strange paradox about Saudi Arabia is that actually more women are going to higher education now than men. So what are all these women being educated to do? I mean, they get all these incredible, credentials now in science and technology and maths, and they're really killing it, actually, intellectually. Then they get their degrees, and what happens? They have to go home and, not be allowed out of the house without a man. Isn't this logging up trouble? Isn't this going to be surely the moment when things burst in Saudi Arabia, when all these educated women finally say enough?
We've been always having a very well education system for the women, but it's 40% of it is religious. And they always tell us we're queens, we're pistachios.
What, pistachios?
You know a pistachio?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, fustuqa in Arabic. If any Arab in the house would understand.
Does that means a kind of a princess, does it?
It's like a kind of something protected.
Right.
A diamond. And like diamonds are so beautiful, they put them in showrooms and people see it. And it has to be protected. So if you grow up, even with very good education, but when it comes to the 2 things, the religion education and the society restraints they put on these women, and they call you're a woman. It's like, I'm going to cut you. I know you have feet. God gave you feet. But I'm going to cut your feet. I'm going to put you in a wheelchair. Whenever you want to go, I'm going to take you. But I'll look at my time. When I'm free, I'm going to do that. This is exactly what they do to women. They put them in wheelchair because you're a queen. We're going to help you. Not everyone have a driver or a chauffeur or can afford it or even can accept having a stranger in her house. I was divorced for 5 years. I would never put a stranger living with me and my son alone in the house. So it's the society also putting a lot of pressure on the woman, and as long as she does believe that I'm a queen and a pistachio and I have to be protected, I think the education doesn't change anything really.
You stay infantilized, you mean, as a woman, really? You're treated really as a beautiful child.
So in the West, you treat a woman more of, I don't want to offend you guys again, but I'm against, for example, how they use it in the West. I went to a conference in Germany, and there were these beautiful model-like women. I'm an engineer. They were standing there in front of the tables. It was more of a technology, show. And I asked her a question, and she has no clue what is this product doing, and she has to call someone from the back to come and talk to me, to explain to me the product. And for me, it's using a woman too much, using her as an object. For me, it's totally wrong. And in Saudi Arabia, it's totally the opposite side, is demonizing a woman. Her body is demonized, like Dr. Khawla when she was demonized not to use her body. So both ways, it's totally rejected, extreme, and it should be the moderate way. You should really have self-respect in these things. And this is what we always say in Saudi Arabia, it's too extreme. In the West, it's too extreme. They always say, "Oh, you want to go in bikinis to work?" I'm like, no. Even the West, they do go to bikinis.
But there's also a very
work.
dark side to the guardianship laws, because a Sharia court, a judge can actually say a man is within his rights to beat his wife, his sister, or his daughter, correct? Yes. Which is pretty horrific. And although there is a violence against women law, in fact, it's not really, it's a toothless law, because the Sharia law can say you can beat your wife and sister and daughter. So tell us, I think everyone in this room will be quite interested to hear the list of all the things that women cannot do in Saudi Arabia. It's kind of a remarkable list. Do you want to tell us all the things that you can't do in Saudi Arabia?
Oh, you can list them really.
So you can't play sports, right?
There are things that there are laws, like sports, like this, like driving. They keep saying no, there is no law. But last October, they came out, the government, and said clearly it's banned by law.
But anyway, it's irrelevant, because they may say that women can drive, but the snag is that they don't give women any licenses, correct?
And that too, you can't.
Right. So that's a bit of a snag.
But there are the other things you cannot do as a woman, because if the society itself is restraining you, and you find it most of the Arab world go through this. It's not only in Saudi, but maybe in Saudi because we have the religious establishment influence is more in Saudi Arabia. So you find it, for example, I was in the airplane. I was, at that time, when I was married to a Saudi man, he asked me to cover my face. So I cover my face, but when the food comes in the airplane, I had a child who was fourth grade. She was sitting next to me. Her family were away, so I was talking to her because she was afraid to be alone. When the food came, I had to uncover my face to eat. And she looks at me and she said, "Are you infidel?" So this is the society. They put in the children's and the women these ideas, the things they can do because that makes you impure or infidel. So this is the other things you cannot do because there are no laws, but the society would be against you if you do it.
Yeah. Well, one of the most awful things, I think, is that when a woman gets divorced, her children she immediately loses custody of her children. They have to be kept with their father. And, of course, your son, you're divorced, and your son has to live with your ex-husband in Saudi, and you have to visit him from Dubai. What is going to be now your future, Manal? Are you going to progress as an activist now, or is this the full focus of what you're doing?
First, I'm against the word activist, because if you see something wrong, you have to speak up. Labeling people who speak up against wrong things and go and fight for the rights as an activist make other people think, I don't want to be labeled, or I don't want to go and walk in that. So I'm totally against the word activist. I'm just a woman. I'm just a human being who would not accept being wronged. But in Saudi Arabia, or even around the world, I think if we keep quiet, nothing will change. And usually the dictatorship regimes or the oppressive regimes like Saudi Arabia regime, they are very comfortable unless you shake the ground under them. So what you do is keep shaking the ground and things change. And by the way, in 2011, when I drove and the whole world made a scandal to Saudi Arabia, September, I was released from jail May 30. In September 23, the king, for the first time, he addressed women and he says, we will not accept marginalizing of the women, and he appoints 30 women to the Shura Council. A lot of observers said it's because of the Women Drive campaign. It brought so much attention to women's rights in Saudi Arabia. They had to take a stand, so people say good things about Saudi Arabia.
That's
after
great. Well,
that.
keep on embarrassing that king as much as you can.
We do love him, by the way.
Just keep doing it.
He's a good guy. He's just...
Thank you so much, Manal al
you.
Sharif. We're very proud to have had you. We're a brave woman. We support your efforts, and keep on making change in Saudi Arabia. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you're going to hear now from, and now you're going to meet another very brave young woman, this one time from Pakistan. I want you to watch now. Her name is Khalida Brohi. She has launched a movement in Pakistan to persuade very intransigent, fundamentalist men in rural parts of Pakistan to allow their daughters to go to school. Before you meet her, I want to show you this clip by the brilliant documentarian, the Pakistani documentarian Sharmina Bayat, who won an Oscar for Saving Face. Some of you may have seen it. This is a little clip which shows you what Khalida Brohi is up against as she goes around trying to persuade fundamentalist men to let their daughters go to school.
When we start working in a new village, we go and identify the influential leaders and we bring them together in one meeting. Assalamu alaikum. असां औरतन सां ऐं हुननि जे जेका घर वारनि सां मिली करे असां उन्हनि जी फलाह जे लाइ कोशिशि कयूं था कमु कयूं था असां पंहिंजे नज़रिए सां त हर कमु कोन कंदासीं हिते कंहिं बि ॻोठ में अगरि को इदारो कमु शुरू करे थो त हू हुननि माण्हुनि जे नज़रिए सां हुजे हुननि जी मदद सां हुजे हीअ ॾिसो हीअ गुरबत जी ॻाल्हि कोन हूंदी आहे न मर्द वीचारो थकी पवंदो एतिरो सारो ज़मीन जो कमु करे छो न अधु कमु माई खे ॾेई छॾे
हिकिड़ा माण्हू अहिड़ा आहिनि जेको उन ॻाल्हि खे कोन तस्लीम कंदा आहिनि ठीकु आहे न पंहिंजूं औरतूं ॿाहिरि कोन कढंदा
अहिड़ो को इंतज़ाम कयूं जंहिंमें हुननि जी मार्केट माना का शइ ठाहिनि था मार्केट में कीअं विकिणिजे हुन में अहिड़ो कारोबार कीअं कजे तव्हांजी छा ख़्याल आहे हिन में
छोकिरी आहे वञे थी स्कूल ते ठीकु आहे कंहिंसां ख़राबु थिए त वेही हुन सां भॼी उहो वापसि आहे त हुनजी गोली ख़र्च
तव्हां चई त हुन सभिनि जे जवाब में तव्हांजी सिर्फ़ु हिकिड़ी गोली हूंदी छा मतिलबु आहे
नजात जे कमु थियो त पोइ हुनजी गोली आहे नजात
हिन में बेइज़ती छा आहे वीचारी छोकिरी जो त कसूर कोन
इहा ॻाल्हि त न कई वई असां वटि जेकॾहिं इहा ॻाल्हि थींदी आहे त हुन कारदुस गोली हिकिड़ी ख़र्चींदी आहे
Amazing. Hello, I'm Gail Zamakaman, the Council on Foreign Relations and the author of The Dressmaker of Karkhanat. And with me is Khalida Brohi, who we just had the pleasure of seeing on screen in that very chilling clip. She is the 25-year-old founder of Sukhar Empowerment Society, and Sukhar means skilled and confident women. She's joining us today from Karachi, and we're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is, for me, such a personal pleasure because I've spent a lot of time in Afghanistan and I've met so many incredible, brave young women in the region like you. And it's just, I think so many times we have a victim image of young women and girls from that area.
Yeah.
When the truth is there are so many, maybe not quite as tough as you, but pretty tough.
To tell you the truth, there are amazing women out there. And the view, the perception about sympathy and, you know, women being very marginalized has to go, really.
So tell us, and I think you're part of that, right? I mean, your generation and the work you do is part of really reshaping not just what you get to do, but what girls behind you get to do. And what I want to start with is your thought in that moment. Because really what he's saying is we fight with bullets and you're trying to fight with imagination, right? And imagination versus bullets is a pretty one-sided fight. But, but I wanted to see, what do you think in that moment where he's talking about violence?
Yeah, in that moment, you all saw me go speechless. And usually that is the time when I choose not to speak because I choose to plan in that moment. I said this before one time when I was speaking that my father told me, growing up, I used to cry a lot. I've grown up in the mountains and then in slum areas. And I've seen so much happen to women, so much injustice. And I would cry usually behind the curtains or having a cushion on my face or sometimes in my father's arms. And if I don't hear anything from the curtains or the cushions, my father would say something to me that I would always remember. And he used to tell me that, Khalida, my dear, don't cry, strategize. And in those moments,
good advice for everyone.
In those moments when I hear things like that, that bullet is the only answer, I strategize. I strategize that this guy would one day be working for me, and he is.
He is your employee now.
Now he's working, and we are actually developing the first ever village industry in Pakistan, and we are doing that right there with all these men.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There are two pieces I want to pick up on that. One is why you got started doing this work, because it was something very personal to you. You know, more than 1,000 Pakistani women were killed in the name of honor last year, and this is something that obviously for you has hit home.
The UN reports there's 1,000 women. I mean, growing up into places where we know these things happen in our neighborhood, which are never reported, I think the cases go a lot beyond that. It is a very, very personal thing to me. I lost my friend to honor killings. I don't even want to call it honor killings. It was a crime. She was murdered. Nobody talked about her after that. And the way I was 16 years old, I was like, bring my friend back to me wherever she is. I don't understand that there are customs that would kill a person on the suspicion of her being, you know, having relationships with someone or her asking to marry someone. And it just couldn't cross my mind. And I thought maybe the world doesn't know about it. And I started as an activist spreading awareness, and soon found out they know. I was 16 years old at that time. Yeah.
And you went around trying to make people aware of what was happening to girls right around.
Yeah, I used to write poems. I started writing poems. I mean, I had those nightmares and all those times. It was really difficult for me. And I would write poems where I'm imagining myself to be my friend, and I would imagine myself dying and asking the world, like, where is everybody when they keep talking about justice so much? And I would be saying that until I die.
You know, you go around as a teenager, you try to make people aware, and in your words, you actually failed the first time.
Yes, I did. Second time too.
The religious elders in your area actually forced you to leave. You know, there were so many security problems for you after that. Tell me what you learned from failure.
A lot. Oh my God. Failure was because of our own mistakes. It's fun to be a teenager and to think that you can end honor killings in one day. Capiche? It's easy to kill all the men in one day. I tried. But I was a feminist, a true feminist. I stood up for my friend. But then the way we did it, it was wrong. The way we challenged the customs, I'd never realized that I was from a village, I was from a tribe, and we have all these traditions, the traditional dresses, the dances, the food, and everything, which are actually the beautiful parts of culture as well. But just ignoring everything, we stood against the customs, and they eventually kicked us out of the village. The learning was whatever we would do in the future would always involve these men, would always involve the tribal communities, may it be in a strategic manner, which we did in many, many ways. And the first strategy that came back to us was an apology project. After having been failed radically, we actually came back to Karachi, and then we went back to these villages with a plan to promote the cultures. This time to promote their 3 different cultures. One was music, language, and embroidery. And promoting the music was fun, language was perfect. Embroidery was where we actually bring together all the women into a center. And that is where the whole idea was, bring them into a center, and instead of getting them to do embroidery, they would go through this life-changing process of basic education, what Islam says about their rights, social enterprise, launching their own businesses, value addition of traditional embroidery, just to show everybody what they were doing inside the center.
So money is power for women was basically your idea.
Yes. Money and knowledge. I was just telling someone that I couldn't have been myself, who I am right now, if I hadn't known. I was a mountain girl, I am a mountain girl, but the only difference is I know, and I need for these women to know.
Everybody knows the story now of Malala Yousafzai. And tell us about the risks you face, because they are very real. I mean, we've met girls who face night letters, family harassment, all kinds of dangers, just to go to school every day. And what you're doing is really trying to upend communities in a very quiet way.
It's not quiet anymore. There was a time when seeing my passion and everything, my father was like, come on, it's all right, go ahead and do it. You just have to make a deal. You go back to school. I stopped going back to school, declaring that if friends are being killed in customs like this, I might not go to school and have all the freedom to myself. He said, if you go back to school, I would let you do your work. He had no idea what I was going to end up doing. And today, it's like more than 800 women. We are all over Pakistan. We're challenging the policies. We're also working with the tribal leaders. And we're making men like these work for us.
But it is not danger-free, what you do.
It is not. I mean, we've been bombed at our offices. They've attacked us in many, many ways.
You were in the offices when they were bombed.
Luckily, there is one thing very strange about my journey. My name means immortal. Khalida means immortal. And I take a lot of advantage of that. I walked out of the office and it blew.
So you walked out of the office. And
yes. And so apparently my parents get a call where they were told that I was in the office, which was very bad for them. And that those were times when they tried to get me stop working.
But you've kept going.
Of course.
And you have this incredibly moving moment where you talk about your first flight out of Pakistan and what it meant to go to a country like Australia where you saw something very different than what you had known.
Oh my God, those days. In 2007, I did my first flight ever. And I mean, I was holding my breath like all those times because if I breathed, the plane would fall down. And I was the one holding it. But then, other than that, getting out from the mountains, at least going to Karachi where we see women driving and women being able to do other things. But then going to Sydney, Australia, where women are doing everything, like beyond my imagination. Women are so confident, the way they speak, the way they do plans for their lives. When you talk to them like, what is your plan for this year? They'll be like, ma'am, this is what I'm planning to do. Like these things, I would cry every night. Like over there for 15 days, I used to cry myself to sleep, thinking that just a few hours of airplane travel, I land in a world which is totally different from where I am. And I need to take this world back to my country. And how do I do that? That was another plan.
And it is, I do, you know, you have those 2 hours of flight and you go from being able to do everything to, you know, not walking in the street by yourself.
Seriously, yeah.
You have a father who has meant the world to you and who is the reason why you got educated, right? I think it's important in a room full of women, we honor the men also. Because your father had a child bride and educated her. Tell us that story about your dad.
My mom was 9 years old when she was married to Dad. She immediately had to leave her house and go to my father's house and tells me the stories of when she had to serve 24 people in the house and wash their clothes and wash dishes for them. But the idea of her not having ever seen a school and then one day demanding for us to go to school was very, like what happened in the process was amazing. My father educated her, holding her hand, getting her to write ABCs and Alif Be's and all the other languages. And now she's able to read, write, and speak in different languages and also reads many books. When she first learned to read, she read about a world where women are actually able to go to school. And the idea of a school for girls was very strange for her. She was pregnant with my brother when she was 13 years old. And she said, I want my children to be born in a city. Let's move. This was a demand from a village girl where women are not supposed to tell their names. They have to be so modest, they have to look down and not mention their names. And my mother asked that, and my father did it for her, which is amazing. So they moved out to a town where we were born.
And educated.
Yes, we went to school then.
You have talked a lot about how change has to come from within. But I want to end by talking about this amazing room full of people who create media and change all around the world. What can people in this room do to advance the cause of change makers like you in places they may never visit?
I mean, the first thing that is just be as inspiring as you are. The more I meet people like all of you, the more amazed I am. These days I don't cry in the night, but I do get so inspired that each time I go back to Pakistan, I have new ideas. I would just like for all of us to follow up with each other and to find ways if we can help each other and how we can help more women in Pakistan from the mountains like me to come here into different world and present their story. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. From the mountains to Hollywood and back, I'm so glad that you're here. And now I'm very excited to present to you a woman from here in California, an engineer who saw a gap and sought to fill it, and rolled up her sleeves and put on her design and engineering cap and did it. Take a look. Thank you.
This is the DayOne water bag. It's an all-in-one system, so it allows you to collect water, treat it, transport, and store all in a single unit. The first step is you'd go to a creek or a stream, collect water, fill it to 10 liters, and then we work closely with Procter & Gamble. This is the P&G Purified Water Packet. You add 1 packet to 10 liters, and then you mix it. So you agitate it like a washing machine for 5 minutes. The coagulation starts and it settles out. So you visually can see the treatment process working. All the sediment settles to the bottom. You have to wait an additional 25 minutes, and then just pop that open, and the water flows through. I was living in South Korea when I was in elementary school. It was for my dad's job. He is an engineer. I had an opportunity to see some of the real lows that can happen in another country. Seeing actually the people who are begging for money, who just want food to get them to the next day, really stuck with me. In 2005, I was working with Engineers Without Borders. We were in Thailand working on a water treatment system for Hill Tribe community. And then with Katrina happening, also the Southeast Asian tsunami happened. And just to know that within minutes, within seconds, basic needs can be taken away. And our professor said, you know, we have an opportunity here working on water and sanitation solutions to really change the course of how people are living and to actually prevent diseases and to save lives. It took about a year to really build from the concept to actually working prototypes. So many days in the lab, many sleepless nights. According to the American Red Cross, the #1 challenge in a disaster zone is providing clean drinking water. So we're working with relief organizations, government agencies, preparedness groups. The military is often first responders in a disaster, and we had a relationship with the U.S. Navy via Cal Poly, and so we got a contract with the Navy right off the bat to work in Thailand with Thai Marines, U.S. Navy, evaluating the technology, and of the 10 water technologies tested, we ranked #1 in water purification performance as well as user operations. We're all global citizens, and we have a responsibility to help each other, and whether that's your own child, your mom, your dad, or somebody living in another continent, it's part of human nature, I think, so it's #1 important thing to me.
How about that? Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Birch. I am a reporter over at the KTLA Morning News. So I spend my early hours, and I do mean early, reporting on bad news. But during the days and during the nights, I get to run a wonderful foundation here in Los Angeles called the Good News Foundation, where we highlight people who are making good news. And do I have a good news story for you? Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please welcome to the stage the fantastic Patricia Campos Markman.
Thank you.
She comes to us from a land very, very far away. It's called San Francisco. She is the founder of DayOne Response, Inc. You saw there in the video what a remarkable technology and what a difference it is making, especially in those communities that are either experiencing disaster or disaster prone. She's also been named one of our Women in the World and Toyota 2014 Mothers of Invention. Trisha, you are such a mother of invention. I mean, this is really, really cool. I've seen the video a couple of times. One of the things that I love so much was this quote that you said at the end, and I wrote it down. It said, "We are all global citizens, and we have a responsibility to help each other." How did you come to such a strong sense of human nature on a global perspective?
You know, I think it really started for me when I was a youngster. I grew up in South Korea. and I went through elementary school there, and I had the opportunity, I didn't know it at the time, but the opportunity to see a world much bigger than myself, much bigger than my family. And my family integrated us into the culture, got to experience the food, learn the language, but also see parts of it that still haunt me today, see some of the poverty. People without legs or arms begging for food. And at 7 years old, I didn't understand why people were living like that. So I think that kind of built my foundation of no matter what you do, I think we all have a responsibility to help the global society.
I think that's so important that we share that with our children as well, so they understand that the world, like you said, is so much bigger than just our little corner of it. To put it into perspective how valuable this is, I was reading some information, and it said that every year some 255 million people in the world suffer from disasters. I mean, that's 250 million people a year that could be using this very bag.
Yeah, I think it's, we hear about disasters that happen. I mean, we heard, and rightly so, we heard about the typhoon that hit the Philippines, the earthquake that hit Haiti, tsunamis that are happening. But these disasters, I think there's a statistic, in 2012, over 900 natural disasters occurred.
900?
900. So it's about the seasonal flood events that are affecting West Africa, floods that are hitting Southeast Asia that we're not hearing about, that people are missing. They've been the basic needs have been taken away. So, and there's great implementing organizations working on that, but I think it's really how can we come together to, whether it's through innovation or through different support, work and make sure that those people have a good quality of life to get back up.
In the wake of a disaster, I think most people think, let me send money, let me send clothes, they need shelter. But from what I understand from you, the number one thing they need, and the thing they need the quickest, is water. And yet, why is it the hardest to deliver?
Yeah, I think that, drinking water is something that, at least here in the United States, we're not always thinking about. Open the tap, fill your cup, and then, you didn't think about the whole process there. But especially in a vulnerable situation or a disaster, your basic needs have been taken away. And getting those in place can be, I think, quite a logistical challenge of what we've learned from many of our implementing partners. But having that can get you through. You've just survived a disaster, but now you've got to survive the rest of, building up. So preventing
surviving
disease.
The aftermath of the disaster.
Yeah, waterborne diseases, that can affect, after the Southeast Asia tsunami, I think 140,000 people were killed, and more than half of those people died of waterborne diseases.
So they didn't die from the actual disaster, it was from what came after.
Correct.
You brought a visual aid. I do love someone who brings visual aids. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DayOne Response bag. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It seems like the innovation, if I'm to understand this, is that it's sort of, well, it's pretty darn easy, number one. Number two, though, it's all in one, meaning what? You collect it, you transport it, treat it, and store it.
And I think that's really where we're trying to hit on. The logistical piece of it is to be able to have everything all in one. I mean, you can think of jerry cans, buckets, chlorine tablets, but how do organizations get all those supplies and then distribute to very isolated areas that you can't maybe get to on the road? So really we tried to kind of think extreme and said, how can we we're not reinventing the chemical, but how can we make something really efficient that could potentially be drop shipped with minimal to no training? Now I know that's extreme and training can go a long way, but how can we get something that, in a sense, one individual can learn the treatment and then teach their neighbor, and then that can then kind of train the trainer on that.
It seems like a pretty simple idea. How complicated was it to develop a simple idea?
Well, yeah, I think we were a little naive, we being my professor at Cal Poly, myself, and a team, that, oh yeah, we're just going to design a bag. It's going to take maybe 2 months. No problem.
It seems like a good idea.
It was about 2 years to really get this design down. A lot has to do with the mixing of the chemical in the bag. And beyond just the design is really, it's great if it works in the lab, but are people in different parts of the world going to be able to use it? Do they want to use it? And I think that, to me, was really where I wanted to get to. And so, somebody in Haiti versus somebody in Kenya versus somebody in Nicaragua, could they understand this treatment, this process, would they want it? Do they need it?
And that leads to my next question. I mean, it's one thing to be an engineer, and by the way, that is a really cool thing.
Thank you.
It's another thing to be an inventor, but then you've decided, you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I mean, back in 2010, they formed DayOne Response, Inc., and you really took on the business side of this. Why not just say, I've developed something great, someone could buy your patent, you could just sit back and drink water in your house and not worry, but you decided to really be the business person behind this as well.
You know, it was studying engineering, and I think it's evolving, but I graduated with my master's in 2009, so not that long ago. And the idea I studied civil engineering, and it was either you got a government job or you became a consultant. And so I actually started down that road. I never thought about entrepreneurship. Got a job offer in San Francisco, moved to San Francisco. This was when the economy was going down, and the offer was rescinded. And it was a bit devastating for me personally, but then I realized there's an opportunity kind of sitting in front of me, and it was this technology, and that there's a real need for this, and I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to learn beyond just the DayOne water bag, but what other opportunities are out there, and so it just kind of made complete sense to start DayOne Response, but we had the collaborative partners, supporters, mentors to do that.
I love that the job didn't come through. That's that whole story about one door closes and a new window opens. So you certainly saw that window of opportunity. Was there one moment where, and I hate to say this, but it's probably associated with a disaster, but was there one disaster where you realized we've made it, this is working?
I think there was two moments for me. We went, a lot of our work was based around ease of use and usability. So we weren't immediately responding to disasters, but going into disaster-prone areas to see how individuals would use this, or ideas that maybe we weren't thinking of that they could adapt it to. So we went to Haiti, working with International Medical Corps, and went there about 15 months after the earthquake in 2010. And introduced the bag to a number of community members, got an idea of what was working and maybe what design features we could change. But in addition, we got to see, again, I think it was 15 months after the earthquake, we saw that people were living amongst the rubble. People were still living in tents, even though their home was standing. They were fear that maybe their home was prone to collapsing for the next earthquake. So our translator, Dimitri, who became our main trainer, he kind of pulled me aside and he said, everybody's been affected. Everybody's lost either a mom or a dad, a sibling, an uncle, but we are a community of hope. And it kind of, amongst seeing this, I thought, wow, that's, I think to me it brings in the word resiliency. But he said we can't do it alone. We need people like you. We need the relief organizations helping. We need governments, but as a community we can build towards that. So that moment made me realize, we got to keep pursuing, innovating for disasters. And then most recently, we have DayOne water bags have been deployed for the Philippines typhoon, and again, working with International Medical Corps. And some of the individuals at International Medical Corps have reported back on some of the feedback. And they've deployed over 200 units, supporting 3,400 individuals. And they do this through their mobile clinics and give a 1-hour training session, and then these are distributed. And what I realized is DayOne Response, we weren't there. And I think we weren't there to see how it worked, to do any of the training. It's now kind of been transferred. And I think that's key, is being able to have communities take ownership of this.
That they can move on. We talk about these disaster communities, but it seems like this has such a great practical application for developing third world countries where water is still a day-to-day struggle.
Yes, I mean, water is, it's a basic need and a main challenge that so many countries are experiencing challenges with, even here in the United States. And I think that for us, it's understanding where can this fit the best within, what are the water issues, and then could we integrate this in, or could we innovate new technologies in water and sanitation?
I can take this down to the LA River this afternoon, right? Scoop up some, agitate it a little.
Sure.
All right.
Well, we can do that together.
Good to know. That's something new from my reporter survival kit. I usually don't ask women this because I feel it's somewhat inappropriate. I usually don't ask them about their age. Instead, I just obsess and guess. You know, I just spend that time. May I ask you how old you are?
Sure. I'm 29, almost 30.
So what are you going to do next to change the world?
You know, I think it's keeping and driving with DayOne Response. I mean, this is our first endeavor, is really addressing the global need for emergency drinking water. But as we work with our implementing partners, with the military, with domestic preparedness organizations, we're hearing about so many other needs, particularly in sanitation, which is, I think, a wide open space.
Right.
And so complementing water and sanitation together, there's a lot of opportunity. And it's not about us inventing everything, but looking to see maybe what's out there that we can integrate and distribute and work, you know, with our partners on.
You mother of invention. Sponsored by Toyota.
Thank you.
DayOneResponse.com, right? That's the website. What can we find out if we go there?
Well, kind of an immediate call to action if anybody's interested. If you go to DayOneResponse.com/purchase, is you can buy water bags for some of our implementing organizations, particularly Team Rubicon and International Medical Corps. They'll go to good use. They're, you know, continuing to fight the good fight in many areas that we don't think of. So again, this will help us accelerate the opportunity to provide clean drinking water to many.
Tricia, this interview has both inspired me and made me incredibly thirsty all at the same time. To you, my friend, to
Cheers.
you. Ladies
Thank
and gentlemen, Tricia Campos Markman. Just so you know, Tina will be up in one more moment. She wants to next introduce a topic that is really creating headlines around the world. So please direct your attention to the screen as we hear about something very important coming from Uganda.
They are disgusting. What they do is terrible.
Here in Uganda, we don't want it. We are saying no to homosexuality.
I don't think that homosexuality is a human right.
This is a human rights issue. Human rights must be respected. The environment has changed from one where people were tolerant towards each other to one where there's a level of witch hunting. Today they're after gay people, tomorrow you never know who they'll be after.
Well, last month, as you saw on that little bit of a clip, the Ugandan president, Museveni, signed a controversial anti-gay bill imposing very harsh sentences against a homosexual lifestyle, in some cases imprisonment. And the reasoning behind it was that supposedly Western mores are being pushed on Africa. They wanted to take a stand. They felt that young boys were being corrupted and perverted, apparently, by Western mores. After the law was published, a Ugandan tabloid published a list which publicly outed 200 gay members of the LGBT community, and it's really become a new media witch hunt. So we have some very interesting and brave people here on our stage right now. We have, on my left, Clare Byarungaba, who's flown to brief us here from Kampala today on what is going on. She's a very courageous LGBT activist fighting the new law and was herself outed in this horrendous witch hunt campaign. And we've also got with us Roger Ross Williams, whose award-winning documentary, God Loves Uganda. Some of you may well have seen it. It's really incredible, this movie.
Thank you.
Because, you know, Roger was so prescient. I mean, 2 years ago, he made a movie about the rising homophobia in Uganda. I mean, you know, he saw it and called it before anybody else. And 2 years later, it's really important to watch because you see the seeds of this hatred that has now begun to sweep, not just Uganda actually, but Africa, because Nigeria too has passed the same kind of a law, and we're fearful that it might sweep further into places such as Kenya. So Claire, tell me about the day that you picked up the newspaper and found that you had been outed, and what is it like being yourself, you know, a gay woman living in Uganda?
Thank you so much. The day I found out I was outed, my first thought was like, oh my God, what is my mom going to do? Because, you know, I had done this interview for, you know, The Advocate, which is, you know, a United States-based, you know, newspaper. So I didn't know that it would come back home. And, you know, we've always felt safe to do interviews, you know, with foreign, you know, agencies rather than, you know, home agencies, because, you know, it doesn't just put you in danger, but it does affect the way your family lives, you know. So that was my first thought, my mom, because she had told me so many times, please stop shaming us. You know, you're going to be killed because of the work you're doing. And of course, apart from that defiance, I had promised, you know, in 2014, I'm not going to do any more media. You know, I'm going to, you know, like be a background activist. But at the same time, you know, we have to continue to do the work we're doing. As a lesbian living in Uganda, it's been very difficult. After the bill was passed, my mom said, you know, I'm going to hand you in to police. And what that means is, you know, corrective rape. It means you can't see your family anymore, you can't do the work you're doing. You know, I have had to move from house to house every month because of, you know, the dangers. We received so many death threats. We received so many, you know, threats to our work. As an individual and as an activist, I am facing about 7 years to life imprisonment simply because of the work I'm doing and simply because of my sexual orientation. So it is very difficult.
Now, what is so hard for us to understand is, where is this hatred coming from? What is it? Why is it that this is now become such a boiling issue in Uganda, that there's this, you know, this stance against gay people has been reached?
Yeah, I think it all, you know, Ugandans are largely tolerant people. You know, I grew up in an environment where if you didn't have food, you know, your neighbor would give you food. But what is happening right now, with the majority being against the minority, you know, we're less than 5,000 gay people in Uganda, so it shouldn't be a matter of national importance. But what brought up the hatred is, number one, the fact that, of course, US religious extremists came to Uganda and said, this is the gay agenda, they're after your children, you know, they are against traditional marriage, you know, all these things that Africans care about. And as a Ugandan, if you hear that a gay person or a lesbian is after your child, then you definitely become angry and you're ready to do anything to protect your child. Unfortunately, these were the sentiments around the anti-homosexuality bill. So yeah, this is where it comes from.
It's very, very ugly. Roger, of course, this was the subject of your film. Yes. How actually white evangelical Christians are feeling that they have lost the culture wars in the US, have now moved into Africa to try to inflame anti-homosexual sentiment. This man, this Scott Lively, is this pastor, right, who's having rallies right now in Uganda. Tell me about Scott Lively and what you saw in your film.
Yeah, well, Scott Lively's a very fringe figure, evangelical leader in America. I mean, he has a small church in Springfield, Massachusetts, but because he's Dr. Scott Lively, because he's an American and what Americans represent in Uganda, he got to go to Uganda and address the parliament for 5 hours on the danger of homosexuality. And what he told them was that the goal of the homosexual is to wipe out mankind, like that craziness. And he wrote a book called The Pink Swastika, that in his book, he says that the Nazi movement was really a gay movement. Now, this is the guy who's completely crazy, but the Ugandans, he took him very seriously, and he did a 3-day conference there, and he said that it was important for the Ugandans to come up with legislation to stop the threat of homosexuality, and that's how this bill all got started.
It's unbelievable, really. I mean, of course, in Uganda there is also, this, as you say, this deep, there's a family structure that's very intense, this sort of fear of a family being split apart, which also helps to feed into this fear of homosexuality. Claire, when you came out as a gay woman, I mean, what was that process like of your coming out? I mean, did you did you make a public stand of it? How was it received when you let your friends and family know in the first place that you were a gay woman?
Yeah, actually, I'm not, I'm unofficially out because the media outed me basically. But, when you do the work I'm doing, people, automatically assume you're gay. So I've had to evolve. But I guess, the process of coming out was supposed to be my journey. I was supposed to sit my parents down and explain why I am the way I am. But unfortunately, the media has done it for me in a very, painful way because I was not ready. I had to take off a week because it was really, really painful for me. The things my mom told me after the tabloid outed me was, very, very painful. But I think it is very important for us to be visible because then a parliamentarian who voted for this bill, or the president of Uganda who signed this bill into law will know that Clare is a lesbian and I'm criminalizing her. So visibility is very important, and despite the risks, we do plan to continue to fight because we're not asking for so much. We're asking for the human rights that are enshrined in the Constitution of Uganda.
So what is this? I mean, there have been people who have been violently assaulted, correct? I mean, you know people who've been assaulted.
Yes.
Do you have friends who have suffered tremendously in this new law now?
I have one transgender friend who was walking home one day, and a mob attacked her, and they undressed her right in front of in public. And it was very painful for her because, it's one thing for police to pick you up, but it's another thing for the public to undress you to find out whether you're a man or a woman in public, and for the police to just, stand and watch. Because for the police, this is a way of, teaching you a lesson. So, there's so many people that have suffered. I know so many people have tried to commit suicide. I have people that call me almost on a daily basis and, asking me, Claire, give me 5 reasons why I shouldn't kill myself. And, as an activist, I have to bear that burden and, try and encourage this person to keep moving, even though, our situation has changed so much. People have lost their jobs. People have been disowned by families. I'm one of them. I'm trying to patch up things with my families somehow. People have been beaten up. People have been assaulted by police. No justice has, been realized. So there is so much happening. And for the average LGBTI Ugandan, the question of why we're being targeted, there's no clear answer. Apart from, of course, the political reasons and the fact that, the government tries to scapegoat, a minority so that other things that are happening in the country that actually matter, are not being focused on. I'll give you an example. Within the 70 days after the bill was passed by Parliament, we had about 1,000 plus women dying of maternal health, causes. And this wasn't focused on. We don't have a bill in Uganda that protects women. So much money is going to the army instead of, into healthcare services.
And all the energy that's gone into this hatred could be directed elsewhere.
Exactly.
Roger, I mean, how much is this a kind of political, anti-colonialist stance? I mean, there seems to be a new buzzword around, in Uganda and elsewhere in Africa now, which is social imperialism. We keep hearing. In fact, Museveni, when he signed the bill, made this comment about how, we don't need the Western mores, we don't need what you're doing. Where is this coming from? Is this some kind of new Western sentiment? And yet at the same time, they're hospitable to Scott Lively and his evangelical mission.
Well, this is politics, clear and simple. This is Museveni, who is a dictator, who is using the LGBT community as a scapegoat, as Claire said. And he's up for re-election in 2016. So it's for him, he's not going to get the support of the West because he's been in power too long. So this is a sort of a really kind of smart political move on his part to distract the public from the real issues, which is corruption and just sort of survival, and focus it on a vulnerable population that he can then, it's sort of like everyone in Uganda is frustrated. So they can just take out their frustration on the LGBT community, and he knows that, and that's really what's going on there.
Well, unfortunately, anti-homosexuality is actually becoming a real, useful wedge issue. It seems in Russia with Putin is doing the same thing. Nigeria, good luck, Jonathan. It is really becoming a very ugly new, wedge issue thing to promote.
Yeah, I mean, we call it the Putin effect, because when Putin passed the anti-gay legislation in Russia, he sort of led the way for Museveni to sign that bill. And Museveni even said that he's like, well, I don't need the West, I can go to Russia for aid. So, that was a clear sort of little signal there that he's looking to Russia. And this is something that's happening across the continent. Nigeria, the Congo, the DRC just proposed a similar bill. So it's sort of in sub-Saharan Africa, country by country, passing this bill.
Claire, I thought it was very sinister to read one of the pastors in Uganda says that they're going to now have mobile rehabilitation units which go around the country rehabilitating gays. It's a very scary idea. What does he mean, and what's going to happen in those rehabilitation units?
Yeah, I think what that means is, he's basically sending out a message to Ugandans. If you know any gay person, if you know a lesbian person, if you know a transgender person, please come and report to us as pastors. Please come and report to police. And the public does, respond. People have been outed that way. People have been arrested because of, public vigilance. We must rid homosexuals out of Uganda. So yes, that's exactly what it means. Report people, we can rehabilitate them. What that means is you go for prayers, you probably go for all these wrong methods of treating homosexuals.
Now, where is your political movement leading now? I mean, are you going to be able to oppose this bill in any kind of meaningful way? Are there any supportive straight people in Uganda who are behind your cause?
Yeah, actually, the coalition which I coordinate was one of the national coalitions that brought up, the national fight in Uganda, because originally, we were depending so much on the international support to, keep telling our government what to do. So the coalition, in its diversity, women's rights, children's rights organizations, HIV and AIDS rights organizations, were able to come out as a national voice saying, we do care about this bill. We do care that it's going to have effects not only on the LGBT population, but on other human rights work. So as we speak now, we actually filed a court petition on Tuesday before I came. So that was amazing for us because it gave us, some hope that we can actually, hopefully, get some justice from, the judiciary, whereas, our president disappointed us.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So Roger, now when you look back, you made that film 2 years ago, and I think you knew David Kato, one of the gay activists who was killed, correct? Was he somebody who was a friend of yours?
Yeah, the first time I went to Uganda, I didn't know what I was going to find, and I went there. I got a research grant from the Sundance Institute, and I went there, and David was the first person I met, and he came to my hotel, and he was extremely paranoid, and I thought, oh, he's overreacting. He couldn't be on the street, he and I said, David, I want to do something about LGBT rights in Africa. And he said, well, the story that hasn't really been told is the work the damage that American fundamentalist evangelicals are doing in this country. And he sort of inspired me to make the film. 6 months after that, David was brutally murdered with a hammer. And his funeral was one of the most, the pastor in Uganda, you go back to your village to be buried, and the pastor who was residing over the funeral said that David was going to burn in hell and Sodom and Gomorrah, and an activist grabbed the mic, and it was this sort of tussle, and it was really tense and stressful and horrible, and even the villagers were gathering rocks to start to throw, but luckily, the whole world was watching that funeral because it made international news, and Obama wrote a letter, and Bishop Christopher Sinyanjo, who's in my film, the villagers refused to bury David, and Bishop Christopher Sinyanjo, who's an Anglican bishop who stood up for LGBT rights, actually took over and read and buried David. And it was incredibly emotional, and a bunch of activists had to be rushed into embassy cars and rushed out of there.
Wow. Wow. Claire, before we wrap up, I think, we have a room full of very influential people here in the entertainment industry. What can any of us do to help you in your fight? I mean, I think people are sitting here thinking how brave you are, in what risk you're putting yourself for the gay community in Uganda. Is there anything we can do to help you?
Yeah, thank you so much. We do need support to continue the work we're doing. We need, individual support as activists to continue fighting because, like I always say, a dead activist is not a good activist. So we do need, security funding. We do need to continue to support the advocacy work we're doing despite the environment. Yeah, and also we do need celebrities to come out and say something about this bill. I mean, this act and the impact it will have on different, multinational companies, but also Uganda's international, human rights instruments that they have ratified.
I do think it's time that we started to shame these African governments for these new bills because they're not getting enough. People respond, as we know, to shaming in public. And it's very important that all of the kind of people we have in this room who have access to so much influence and people that they know should now start to really speak out against what is happening in Africa to gay people. It is an absolute obscenity, and it's like the Nazi, it really is like Nazi persecution of the Jews, and it's spreading. So thank you very much, both of you. You're both brave, and you're both amazing. Thank you. So, the last woman you're going to meet today is also an extraordinary woman. She's from China, Anchee Min. She began her life in Maoist China. She was in a labor collective. She was so beautiful as a young girl that she was picked by Madame Mao to play her in a propaganda film. She finally got out of China and made a new life right here in California, in San Francisco. She's the author of several brilliant books. One of them is in your gift bag today. I'd like you all now to welcome the great and wonderful Anchee Min. Thank you.
I don't have to introduce Anchee, and we can get right to it, which is you have had an amazing journey from a child of poverty, a child in a cultural revolution, a child in a film studio, to modern-day LA and back with many, many ups and downs in between. And I think the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was, in Red Azalea, your memoir, you talk about what it was like to denounce one of your teachers. And you talked about the power of being brainwashed as such a young child that you would even have spoken out against your mother if that is what was asked of you. But I wonder what, as a child, learning that, seeing that, what was that moment like now that you think back about it, speaking out against people you love because you thought it was the right thing to do?
It was honorable a thing to do, to be able to tear myself away from the one that I love. And only when a child was able to do that, she would be able to dedicate and devote herself to liberate the world, to fight for the poor people, and so the children in America can eat. So that was, to me, it was an honorable thing. And I think this is what we are living with today. It's where China is coming from. They only see that, and we get to see where China is going. And these memories just live with us. I think that everybody in China tried to forget it, the government, the people just forget about the Cultural Revolution. And we just can't escape. And I found that was during a moment when I was facing my 10-year-old, Lori Ann. She was American, born in Chicago. And I taught her to practice silence because during the day, I have to work in the construction and to survive. And when I come back and I work on my books, so I asked her to sit by me and read and be silent. And then she started protesting, and she said she wants to have a normal American childhood. and she wanted to have a swimming license and demand soccer, and some fancy thing about like a horseback riding. And I started to talk to her about that she can live without these material things, and she said to me, "Mom, I'm practicing silence." And it was at that moment, it reminds me of myself as a 10-year-old, the way I talked to my mother during the Cultural Revolution. It was 1968, and a day my mother dragged 4 of her children walking from one end of Shanghai to the other end to look for a children's book. And when she failed to find it by a children's book, and she came home exhausted, and she says, "It's just not right that we don't have a children's book." And I look at my mother, and I said, in a 10-year-old voice, "There is no need for children's book. Ma's book was the only book we need." Wow. And I remember my mother's expression. It was really, she didn't know how to deal with me. She could see a monster coming.
Well, and then something happened to you as a young person, which I think many in this room will understand, but with very different consequences. You were plucked literally from the cotton fields by a scout for Chairman Mao's wife for looking for somebody to be a young person in a campaign video, because the idea was she would ascend to power and you would need a campaign video to go along with it, and you were going to be part of this film. Tell us about that journey from being a girl in a cotton field one moment to being in a film studio with Madame Mao the next, and I understand you watched Jane Eyre and The Sound of Music also.
Well, it was because I have a correct-looking face. You're all disappointed. It's just I look working class.
The perfect proletarian.
Right.
Yeah.
I went on competitions. What surprised me was so hundreds and thousands of girls, and they're so beautiful, they know how to act. And they are eliminated, and they choose me because I just have this look. And then, and because I did not know how to act, and it shows that my background is a clear, politically reliable. I don't have any bourgeoisie, so Madame Mao wants a piece of white paper that she can draw any color she wanted. So, but I was such a lousy actress. When they put me behind the camera, all I could think of, I don't want to go back to the labor camp because I already had a back injury, and I can no longer plant rice because I can't bend. You know how you plant rice? You go like this, and then you go like busy like a planting season in the summer, like 16 hours a day, and I couldn't do that. All I could do was like just kneel in the rice paddy, and I just plant like this. And then when I have my period, it's all red. I can see it, and I got infections and all that because the water, have all these. But in the film studio, they taught me how to drink water correctly on camera.
Show us the difference.
Oh, okay. They say ready, set, action, and I take the cup and I start drinking, and the director says, "Stop." You see, little pinky tilted up. That's Miss Bourgeoisie. And
Miss Bourgeoisie.
The correct way to drink water is to grab the mug and gobble it down in one breath and wipe your mouth with both of your sleeves. And of course, the footage, it looks horrible. So we eventually went to the Beijing Madame Mao's private studio where we showed the film, the real American film. And I remember they asked us not to be poisoned. Prepare. You only look at the techniques.
Don't be poisoned by The Sound of Music.
Yeah, but how can that not be?
Right. Because you were a child who had basically pulled out your own tapeworm, you had eaten from the trash, you had lost everything, and here you go and see the Von Trapp children.
Yeah, but after Madame Mao's downfall, my look was out of date and became Madame Mao's trash, and I was punished that way.
you have written about America giving you a lifeline and English giving you a lifeline. And we were talking, my aunt's from Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, and she too learned English from Sesame Street. And you talked about coming to America and being stopped because you actually didn't know English.
Yeah, I had my friend, actress Joan Chen, because she was told not to talk to me because I was being punished. And then she came to America, and she was in the movie The Last Emperor, and she feels safe enough to talk to me, write to me, and she told me that she was a student and she pays her own tuition and she work, and the light bulb just went off, and I wrote to her, say, can I be a student? I don't speak English, but I'm from a labor camp. And then so I got the application form, and I had a friend, and they helped me fill out. And when there's a sections is English language skill, poor, average, good, excellent, and the person wrote, of course, excellent. And I just took it, and I thought, I came to America, and I just say thank you at the custom. After 3 thank you, and the person just point out the room behind, and I was in the deportation process. And I was breaking down and said to the translator, I said, my feet are already on American soil. Please, I beg for a chance to learn English in 3 months. If I don't, I deport myself. And later on, they discovered there is a clause in my papers that I was allowed 6 months to study, to manage English and take a test. And if I pass that test, I would be okay. So I learned English in 6 months. I think you would learn Chinese in 6 months if you were in my shoe.
And you did it because that was the stakes for you. It was, you said you would have been dead if you had stayed in China.
Yeah, I was coughing blood.
You then come to the US and you have this incredible up and down journey and a very lonely journey as an immigrant. And you write in The Cooked Seed, which is a book that will grip you from the first moment you open it, of rape, of being raped by a fellow immigrant, of sexuality, of watching sex tapes for human contact.
Yeah, you have.
And you write about
a few years. I didn't have the money to call my family. I'm just alone here, a young woman.
And you write about all of these things which are entirely taboo in many societies, but particularly China. And I wonder, how have immigrant women reacted to you talking about these kinds of topics, which are so personal and so painful?
I had a struggle. I wasn't going to write it, but then I thought, I'm an author. If I don't reflect it, I take all these things, go to grave, and there would be no record. And I think that what I write it's understandable that immigrant mothers would never want to share with their children because it's so embarrassing and shameful. But I thought it was my duty to leave a record, so I don't care how other people think.
And speaking of duty, you are a mother, and you were taught as a child that women were grass born to be stepped on. And you had seen your grandmother's feet from binding, and here you find out you're going to be a mother, and you find out it's going to be a girl. And your reaction was?
I cried. I feel so guilty. I said, it's like you lost. I already lost you because the girls, you don't have enough opportunity. And you're second-class citizen to begin with, and I just don't want you to follow my life. I don't want you to repeat my life. Then I thought I had no choice. So I told her, you're second-class citizen, born as a Chinese, as a woman, but you just have to beat it. And you're gonna turn into a fighter.
And you did make her a fighter. I mean, she is doing brilliantly today, and she has amazing YouTube videos for those of you who want to see her singing and dancing. And she's also in studying and going to be a doctor, right?
And yes, she has healthcare, and she has been taking pre-med classes, and then she found that she wants to make a change, and she's into healthcare. She's very idealistic at this moment, but I think it's all my wish that she's being given so much. Much should be expected from her.
you have called her your American dream. And you've also written in the book about this gap, which I think you don't have to live through the Cultural Revolution. I think a lot of people are children of immigrant parents who see the gap between what their parents lived through and what they have, which is everything here in America, more or less. But one of the things that you have that binds you together is music. Mm-hmm. And you were going to be kind enough to finish our afternoon with some of the music that you've done.
Sure. It's because I couldn't afford the hobby lessons, so I taught her the Chinese tunes. So this is just to say goodbye. I leave you with this song. It's a peasant song. 90% of Chinese living in China are peasants. That makes a quarter of population on Earth. And the title of the song is 山丹丹开花红艳艳, beautiful wild red bougainvillea. China's got grassland and desert in the north and mountains everywhere else. Chinese peasants, they carve out the mountains. They build this terrace climbing 1,000 foot to grow rice, wheat, and corn. And they love to sing. And they like to hear their voices echo through the mountain tree. 山丹丹的那个开花园，红。It's been so long. I'm a rice farmer. I don't know if I can pull this off. Wish me good luck, Tina. 山丹丹的那个开花园，红艳艳，毛主席领导咱大江山，毛主席领导咱大江山。
That was the mighty and powerful Anchee Min, and Tina will close out the evening for us.
Well, Anchee, you're not a rice farmer anymore, okay? So thank you, Gail. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think we've heard from 4 incredible women. We've heard about shame and overcoming shame and resisting cultural and familial pressures, which we have no idea here in our lucky land what it's like to have to deal with. And I feel that we are, by showing these women's stories, fulfilling our mission to see the world through the eyes of women, remind ourselves that there are other places far less free and easy than we have it here, and get to know them a little more in the future. So thank you so much for coming. I hope those of you who wish to come to Women in the World, April 3rd to the 5th, where you'll hear even more of these incredible stories, will be with us, and that we may be able to come back with a full-scale summit to LA if you would like us to sometime. Thank you. And thank you so much to Toyota, who made it possible, and to Credit Suisse, and to all our amazing women and our moderators. Thank you so much.